Hi, Bridget. How are you? It's good to see you.
It's so good to see you, Whitney. I'm doing well.
Yeah, good. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to share a bit of your story and to share a bit about your own experience. Thank you, because I know it's nerve-wracking.
Yes, I'm very nervous,
Yeah,
but I'm also excited.
good. Yeah. Well, I would love if you would tell us a bit about who you are, a bit about where you'd like to start the story, because I would be great to get to know you a little bit.
Okay, so my name is Bridget Hanks. I am married to Tyler, and we have three little kids, and we live in South Dakota. I was born and raised. I would say, I feel like everybody kind of feels like their childhood was normal. Um, and
Hmm.
and mine, I think, was pretty typical. But one thing is, I think we were maybe like my parents were maybe less strict than some. Like it was totally okay to ask questions. We would discuss things as a family. And so one of the questions that would come up would be like, well, like what about the people like in the middle of the Amazon and they'll never meet the workers and my mom
Hmm.
would always say like, oh well, Jesus like God knows the heart. And then when we ask, well, like, what about all my Catholic friends? Well,
Hmm.
Jesus is the way. So if they know Jesus, like, then that's the way. So I feel like we were definitely less exclusive
Hmm.
than some. I also like we never missed a meeting, um, followed all of the usual rules. I
Yeah.
remember thinking like, well, like what are the odds that I was born into like the best way, like
Hmm.
into God's true family. I used to think like I'm probably going to have like a bunch of kids who are workers or something. Like God probably has
Hmm.
something big planned for my life because like what are the chances, you know?
Yes.
So I kind of feel like I got like diet exclusivity. Um, I still don't feel like it was particularly healthy though. I
Hmm.
remember being in middle school and just like I had had a thought that wasn't good, and I was just certain that I had blasphemed against the Holy Spirit and that I was going to hell. And I know it was middle school because I remember being in the computer lab and feeling just like completely hopeless. Like I felt like I was already in hell. And I think it was like a few days. I just felt like, there's nothing I can do. I'm doomed. And I finally like woke my parents up in the middle of the night and told them like um that they wouldn't see me in heaven. And
Wow.
and like they were so reassuring and just like, oh, like just the fact that you feel that way means that you have a soft heart. And but like there was a lot of fear there. And so kind of around professing too, like I knew I wanted to profess, or I professed when I was 12, but I didn't feel like I was good enough. I didn't feel like I was ready. Um,
Mm.
so one convention, it was Saturday night, and I knew they were going to test the meeting, and I was just like, I was looking all over, like, I need to talk to a worker because they're going to test the meeting and I'm not ready. And this sister worker came up to me and just started a conversation. She's like, "Oh, how old are you now?" And I said, "I'm 12." And she's like, "That's how old I was when I professed." And I just like started bawling. I was like, I don't
Mm.
feel like I'm ready. And she told me, she's like, you do not have to be perfect to profess. You
Yes.
just need to pray and give your heart to God. And so I felt like that was like a very like moving experience for me. Like I that felt like it was from God. I felt so much peace after I professed. And I feel like I kind of kept trying to take forward steps to like chase that feeling. Like I want to feel that again. I want to feel that peace. So when I was 15, I asked to be baptized and and I just did it because it was the next step. I mean, I didn't feel like I really understood it. I I do think that it was like there was an honesty to it. It wasn't like just completely just because that I remember being disappointed and how I felt afterwards. I was like, well,
Mm.
where is that overwhelming peace I felt before? Like, where did that go? So that was kind of an interesting experience. Like, I guess I expected my baptism to feel like more. So in our area growing up, there weren't a ton of kids my age. We had a lot of what I would consider now to be age inappropriate friends.
Mm,
And so like in middle school, high school, we were hanging out with, we being me and my four siblings, hanging out with like college kids and young married couples and young professionals. And like where I grew up in Rapid City, there was like the engineering college was there. So we hung out with college kids a lot. And
mhm,
that there was something that was like pretty cool about that actually. Like I never felt like we were like pesky, annoying kids. Like
mhm,
they just kind of welcomed us and that was pretty neat, but there was also like looking back, like it was a bit of a strange dynamic. But it was
mhm,
like the feeling was like it's better to be hanging out with these older professing kids than with worldly friends. Um,
mhm.
I only ever really had one unprofessing friend, and she's still my friend to this day.
Wow.
She was one of my bridesmaids. She calls me once a week, and I always thought I was supposed to convert her.
Mhm,
But through like unpacking this experience with her and with her family, who I've gotten really close to, it's like, oh, God put them in my life, not the other way
yeah.
around. So that's been a really cool thing to realize. But kind of one of the issues with having friends who were so much older is like I think my sister and I especially like we felt like grown-ups. My sister, she's 2 years older than me, and her story is kind of intertwined with my story. She's been really open with her story and she's given me permission to talk about it. So I'm gonna try to tell it without maybe putting words in her mouth or
Mhm.
whatever. Just try to tell it as it relates to my own story.
Yeah.
So when she was 12 and I was 10, young young-ish, probably late 20s, early 30s maybe, couple moved into our town, and the husband started grooming and abusing her for between like when she was 12 and when she was 14. And um I was actually like aware of it as like a 10, 11, 12-year old. Like I knew he was paying a lot of attention to her, and she would tell me like some of the things that he would say to her, and he would say these really like explicit things, and then she would tell me what he said. I remember just like feeling just like sick to my stomach.
Mhm,
And I didn't know the extent of it until much later. Like it's sort of unfolded, like there's so many layers that just over time we learn
mhm,
more as she's been in therapy and more things have come out. But
mhm,
it's just crazy to think about now that like as a 10, 11, 12-year old, like I was aware that he had this interest in her, and I knew it was
mhm,
wrong, but I did not see it as CSA because in my mind we were grown-ups.
mhm,
Like when you're 10, when you're 12, I mean you don't feel like you're a preteen. You feel like you're a grown-up, like you're, you know, you feel more mature than you are. And it's not until later
totally.
where you're like, wow, I was so young. Um, so
Exactly.
I knew it was wrong, but I felt bad for his wife. I saw it as adultery. Like I never blamed my sister. I don't feel like I always put the blame on him because he had made a marriage vow, and he was breaking it by this pursuit of my sister. And I felt really protective of my sister. And I feel like she would actually agree. It was like I was the big sister. Felt like I couldn't protect her if she didn't trust me. So I remember having the thought, like, if I tell mom and dad about this, like she's never going to tell me anything again.
Mhm,
So I didn't tell my parents. And it's
mhm,
like you can imagine like some of the guilt I have for that now. Um,
mhm,
so I recently found a diary entry from when I was like 11 or 12. I've always kept a diary, and it said, he is touchy-feely with every girl he knows except his wife. Warning light right there. So this is an 11-year-old or a 12-year-old writing this in her diary. Like I had like little like horsey stickers around the outside of it, the handwriting is. And and like when I found it, it was just like, where were the adults? Why was a preteen the one who saw this warning light? And so like I feel like now I can name it, like they were groomed. They were
Mhm.
groomed to be non-confrontational and forgiving, and they were groomed by the perpetrator himself to think that he was just, a fun-loving guy who was good with kids. So when she was 14, his wife found out, and the abuse ended, but it was never reported. And so then when she became an adult and she was in therapy, she started to realize just how kind of how messed up it was. And so she told the workers, and the workers in our area had been taking the ministry safe course since 2008.
Mhm.
So they were educated on this, should have been educated on this stuff. Glenn Gasser and Craig Winquist went to visit him. There were sister workers in the field at the time, and they didn't tell the sisters why they were there. He told them, he admitted to them that he had a problem, and they praised his repentance, and they told him to inform his meetings, and none of the other workers were told. And then during COVID, the Bible study that they had removed from his home was placed back in his home because the workers in the area were not aware. And meanwhile, his children were growing up, reaching their teen years, and they were hosting young kids get togethers. And people were sending their kids, not knowing. And he was attending meetings and conventions. I mean, we went to convention with him every year and just tried to have a good spirit. I sat in a gospel meeting with him in May 2023.
Wow.
That's how recently. So for my part, when I was 17, I was touched inappropriately by a professing guy who was a few years older than me. It was a one-time thing. I wouldn't maybe even mention it because
Mhm.
it so pales in comparison to what so many people have faced. But I
Mhm.
feel like that experience gave me like a real heart for some of these emotions. Like I felt so confused. I felt guilty. I went over and over and over in my head, like, what should I have done? Like, I didn't want to hurt his feelings. I thought he liked me. Like, and so then it was like, I didn't want to cause a scene. Like, it was at a get together. There were a lot of other people. So I was just like, man, there was a million ways I could have stopped this. And, and I finally realized that, like, if he just hadn't made the choice to touch me, I would not have had to make any of those reaction choices. Like I wouldn't have had to choose how to react if he just had chosen not to do that. To
Mhm.
and so that was really, really kind of helpful for me to process, and it helped me understand a little bit, even though it was pretty minor. Um, so then I went off to college. I went to school at NDSU, and he didn't live in Fargo, but I mean, there were loads of young kids there, so he would come around and he'd be at get-togethers and things, and I was trying to forgive and move on and have a good spirit. And so I was at a game night and he was there and he made a pedophilia joke. And it just like triggered me so bad. Like, and I had to leave. And it was like all of my efforts to like rise above this and give him room to grow and room to change. And like everybody makes mistakes. And it's like he hasn't changed at all. Like he's not, he's it just like
Mhm.
it just hit me so hard. And so then I was just like in the parking lot, just bawling in my car. And that felt so unfair to me that I was crying in my car and he's in there having fun with all my friends.
Mhm.
And so and it was like it was impossible to avoid him 100%, like he was at get-togethers, he was at game nights and conventions, So I feel like that helped me understand like why it is such a big deal for perpetrators to be in meetings. It's like it you like the feelings that puts that burden that puts on their victim survivors is just like yeah, like I mean even for my sister like she tried a couple times to come back and go to convention with us and like she just couldn't do it. And so then she's
Mhm.
the one skipping convention, you know, it's
Right.
she's struggling.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
like it was just felt really unfair. So college was kind of like I went through a pretty dark time in college, I would
Mm.
say, you know, putting a smile on and going to meeting and giving my testimony every week and but inside like I felt so distant from God. Like there was so much that I just like didn't understand. I think that was maybe the first time where I was making a real effort to just read through the entire Bible. I think I had
Mhm.
found a reading plan and was reading through the entire Bible and the Old Testament there's a pretty good chunk that's pretty rough. And so I was reading about like Hagar and Leah and both the Tamars and
Mhm.
David's concubines. And like, why does he even have concubines? That didn't make any sense to me. And then here they are being abused by his son in on a rooftop. Like that was just like, what is even happening? And it felt really unfair. And
Mm.
I was dating Tyler at this point when I got to Judges 19. I called him up and I was just like crying, almost inconsolable. I was like, did you know this was in here? Like, did you know this chapter was in the Bible? Like, it was so just gut wrenching to me. I was just like, my heart was just breaking for women who
Yeah.
have been dead for thousands of years. And I remember just begging God, just like, can you make this right? Can you make this right in eternity? Because I mean, I can't. You know, they're
Mm.
gone. And I just my heart was just breaking for them. I'm like, why? Why was God allowing this? Why is he still allowing it? I think some of it was like it was maybe almost easier for me to process my empathetic emotions towards these women who were long dead than to like face the fact that this is still happening, you know?
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
and tied up in all of this was just like my own worth as a woman because you know a lot of what I was reading even in like Leviticus, like I just had a King James Bible and the framework that I was used to. So I'm trying to understand like you pledge a man to the temple and you get like 50 coins or something, and then you the woman and it's 30, and like you give birth to a man and you're unclean for this long, and a girl and you're unclean for longer. And I was like, what does this mean? Like, I don't know what this means. Like and so I was praying all the time, like, am I worth less? Like, am I not worth as much? And
Mhm.
that didn't feel right. But like everything I was
Mhm.
reading and with the unfairness that I was seeing, like I couldn't make it make sense. Um,
Yeah.
so this is the backdrop. This is what's taking place in my heart. And I went to convention down in Iowa, and Jeff Thayer was there, and he was speaking from Revelation, and he said, do you know how we know there will be no women in heaven? Because there was
What?
silence for the space of half an hour. And the crowd like, you know, kind of nervous chuckles.
Mhm.
And I was absolutely devastated.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm a like a young adult wrestling with even just like, am I worth anything? And I'm getting more at this convention from these sister workers who just have a few minutes. And he's
Mhm.
got 45 minutes or something, you know. I mean, you could say it was just like, oh, it was just a joke, or whatever, but to me it wasn't just a joke. It just like felt it was crushing. It was really crushing.
Yeah. Yes.
And and so I remember during this time just feeling like can I pray to Jesus? Like do I have to pray to God? Because God
Mhm.
felt so vast and far away. But Jesus, Jesus was a man. And I that's how I understood him, was like, and it didn't totally make sense to me, but like he was like a guy who just like I mean, he was the son of God, but what does that mean? And like how he was perfect, but like how? um
Uh-huh.
I feel like I've gotten a lot more clarity recently about who he was, but at the time it was just like I'm reading the Bible and I'm finding fault with everybody, like Moses and David and like Abraham. They've all got all these wives, and like what's going on. And but I could find no fault with Jesus. There was just like,
Mm,
I could find no fault with Jesus. And so it was during this time where I feel like Jesus became like my anchor. It's like, well,
mm,
there's a lot in the Old Testament I just don't get, but like there's nothing wrong with Jesus.
mm,
Like he was lovely to people. He was wonderful to women. Even women in like the worst situations, he was so kind. And
mhm,
so yeah, Jesus became my anchor, even though I
mhm.
didn't fully understand him and like who he was. That was the good that came from that, because I don't feel like I really got my questions answered. I just kind of, squashed everything down.
Yeah.
And deal with that another time. I don't have the bandwidth for it. So all of that's just sort of got backburnered, and I graduated, I got married, I moved to Washington. Tyler, he's from Washington, so we lived out there for 3 years from 2016 to 2019. And I mean, during that time, I think is when my sister really started unpacking some of what was happening to her. And so at one point she sent me the Wings for Truth site. She sent me the
Yeah.
link. She's like, did you know this existed? And I think I read the whole thing. Like just like
Yeah.
all of the letters this from sister workers and elders, and um the whole story about Ira Hobbs, like all of it. Like I think I just like read the whole thing. And the thing that kind of struck me about it, I was like, this isn't anti anything. Like this is just informative. Like I don't know
Mm,
why they're telling us not to go on the internet. Like this is important.
yeah.
Um, so then we were going to gospel meetings, and there was a lady going to gospel meetings, like an outsider, and she just stopped going kind of abruptly. And
Mhm.
so we would go to gospel meeting early so that Tyler could help set up the speakers. And he asked the one of the sisters, like, oh well, like whatever happened to her? And she was like, oh well, she went on the internet. And I remember just like talking to Tyler on the way home and being like, what is that? Like, why why would there be something on the internet that could take away our faith? Or like that doesn't make sense to me. And the way she
Mhm.
was just so sort of like, oh, what do you do? Like it was almost
Yeah.
like just like a really cavalier, like I was like, well, can't we like discuss this? Like if there's something on the internet and it's true, like we need to address it. And if it's not true, maybe we could like refute it or talk through it. Like that was just
Mm,
totally baffling to me, why you would just sort of give someone up for lost because they went on the internet. I couldn't understand it. So while we were out on the West Coast, like I would see Dean Brewer now and then, and he's actually my dad's cousin. So
mhm.
I would always say hi, just because I mean we were related. And I never really got like creepy vibes from him. I think, I mean, I definitely got creepy vibes from some others who things have come out, but not from Dean necessarily. But there was one thing about him. I was in convention on the West Coast, like Olympia or something, and he gave a sermon. And then I had ended up at Mandan, I think
Mhm.
later that summer because I was visiting family. And he gave the same exact sermon, like verbatim. It
Yeah.
was so weird. Like I flipped back in my notes and I could follow along. And like I remember showing my dad,
Yeah.
like, and that was so weird. I didn't think they did that. I thought it was
Yeah.
supposed to be fresh bread. But I
Yeah.
was like, oh well, I don't know what it's like to be an overseer. Like it's probably fine. But that was like the one thing where I was like, this is super weird. So every year we would go back to Hermosa for convention. And one year, Tyler's cousin Scott had left the work, And the response to him leaving the work was another thing that really bothered me. Like a lot of people were just really, really sad when he left the work. And that seemed weird to me. I was like, he's not dead. Like it could be God has something incredible planned for this next phase of his life. Like, why are we all so bummed? So we stopped to see him, and there was like kind of a lull in the conversation. And this was probably like the second time I had ever met him. And I was like, why did you leave the work? Like, I was like, oh wait, I probably shouldn't ask that. Like, can I just ask
Yeah.
that? I want to be very careful with his story. Like, I don't want to put words in his mouth. Um, but it was very clear from the conversation that followed that question that he was so sincere and he felt a very real calling and a very real love for souls. And his efforts to seek lost souls were being hindered. And he was seeing things that weren't matching up with scripture and he was being ignored. And he finally just reached the conclusion that he could actually follow his calling to seek lost souls better outside of the work than in it. And I hope he'll forgive me if I said any of that incorrectly. um,
Yeah.
but that was the impression that I got from our conversation, and it really made me think, because I was like, like, no, this is how Jesus sent them. Like, this is how you're supposed to do it. So how? But I also absolutely could not deny the authenticity and the sincerity in what he was saying. So then I started just kind of noticing myself, just like how many workers like had health issues, and like
Hmm.
young, hearty, like healthy looking people were taking, years off to rest or for their nerves, or, and I was like, this doesn't seem right. Like you would think that like God would be like giving this more vitality. I tried not to like worry about it too much. It's just I must not understand. But then like also I was noticing like people would leave the work and they would get married. And sometimes like a brother worker would leave and marry a sister worker who had left. And I was like, well, why can't they just stay workers? I mean, they both heard the
Hmm.
call and they like so, and then I was looking in the scripture and I was like, doesn't look like there's anything against that in the scripture. So like, so that was starting to like bother me too. Like, why do we have this celibacy requirement that doesn't seem to be scriptural? So I was starting to notice that like I kind of felt like the ministry was maybe a little misguided. But I, for myself, I hadn't made that sacrifice. So I was like, who am I gonna tell, that I think this is off base? Like who's gonna listen to me about this? Like, so
Exactly.
it was just another one of those things that I just kind of like squashed down. I didn't realize until people started sharing their stories, especially sister workers, just like how it wasn't just misguided. Like there was some very serious abuse taking place, and I believe it is an abusive system. And obviously I can't speak to that from my own experience, but I just realizing that it's just not a healthy place. I mean, some of these questions they're starting to build up, and starting to wonder. And I'm wondering all like the main things too, like why do I have to wear skirts all the time? I'd be way more modest in a pair of pants right now. Um,
Hmm.
like what's the big deal with the hair? Like it's just hair. Like why?
Yeah.
Um, and so I would go to convention and I would get so excited for convention because I was like, you know what? I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be listening to the word of the Lord. Like, and I'm going to get my questions answered. And I'm going to be fed. I'm going to go out from convention. I'm going to feel so refreshed. And then I would go to convention, and it was like every time I went, it would be like less and less and less.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, something's wrong with me. Right? Like
Yeah.
there's got to be something wrong with me. And I would like look around and like people are very clearly like they're giving their testimonies, they're getting things, they're being fed, they're being moved, and I'm like, but what if we're all just pretending? Like I had that thought, and then I was like, oh, you can't think that. Like that's crazy. I think I was realizing that maybe I was a little bit, because I always wanted to be an encouragement, to everybody, to the workers. I try to give my testimony every year, and always be there and always get a full convention. I think for like a few years in a row, like maybe while we were in Washington and we'd come back for Hermosa, like I'd go on a walk with my husband and just cry and just say like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Like, I'm not getting anything out of this. Like, and he was so kind and so reassuring. And he would tell me, he's like, like you're more introverted, like you get more from your quiet time, like you're being fed throughout the year. Like he's like, you
Mhm.
like there's nothing wrong with you. And like I don't know if I necessarily believed the words he was saying, but I did have the thought, like, okay, so my groom here on this earth, he loves me. And he doesn't think I'm doomed. So how much more then would my heavenly bridegroom love me and not want me to go to hell? Like Jesus is supposed to love me even more. So like that would be the thing that
Mhm.
would comfort me. It's like, well, if Tyler doesn't think I'm going to hell, then surely Jesus doesn't think I'm going to hell. Like,
Yeah.
um, and again, it was just like I like Jesus was just like the handle that I just like clung to and everything. Like
Mhm.
we went back one year for Hermosa and Jeff Thayer was going to be there. And I had a bad spirit about Jeff Thayer because of my previous experience. And
Mhm.
so I was trying really, really hard. I was trying really hard to have a good spirit. I said, like I need to try to have a soft heart about this and like an open mind. And just like when I listen to what he says, just like try not to be too critical and try to, maybe accept what the Lord has for me and his message. And so at this
Yeah.
convention at Hermosa this year, he spoke twice. And the first time he spoke about the hairs on your head being numbered. And he said, don't tell me God doesn't care about your hair. The hairs on your head are numbered. Don't tell me God doesn't care about your hair. And then the very next time he spoke, he was talking about Matthew 10 and the two coats. And he said, this isn't literal. God does not care how many coats I have. And I was like, excuse me? Like,
Yeah.
so like God cares about my hair, but he doesn't care about your coats. Like,
Right.
make it make sense. Um, so needless to say, I was not able to have a very good spirit about Jeff Thayer that convention.
Huh.
So my feeling that something was deeply wrong with me remained. So again, I just squashed it all down until next year and then go back to convention, lots of hope, get really disappointed, repeat. So Tyler and I always knew we wanted to come back to the Midwest. And so we had been praying for this and finally he had this job open up. And the day we signed the lease, we were told that there was going to be a convicted offender released from prison and coming back. And it was like, why, Lord? Like we've been praying to come back to South Dakota and now like I just knew like my heart it just sunk. I was like, I can't be in meeting with this man. And we didn't have any kids yet. But we knew we wanted to. We were like, this is where we want to start our family. And
Mhm.
but we didn't have any kids yet. But I went on Wings and I read the article about this man and what he pled guilty to was horrific. I just knew. I was like, we can't be in meeting with him. And again, I felt like that was a failing on my part. Like I wouldn't be forgiving enough or something. But I think because of my experiences, like I knew I would not ever be able to enjoy meeting. And
Mhm.
I think I was terrified of being groomed. Like I was terrified of sitting and meeting with him and getting to know him and getting to really like him and then having kids and not having my guard up. Like that
Yes.
that was what scared me, I think, the most. So we emailed Glenn Gasser with our concerns, and he told us that we could go to a meeting 35 minutes away. And then he said that we could go to the Bible study in Brookings to soften any preconceived hardness. Um,
Wow.
so that confirmed my suspicions that I had a terribly hard heart, and this was my fault that I felt so troubled about this. And so then we emailed him back and said, I mean, yeah, we will go where we're told. And he said that he appreciated the spirit of the email. So it was like, to me, it felt like we were the problem and the solution was to just fall in line.
Yeah.
So when we got here, we actually had a meeting with him one-on-one. He came and had lunch with us, and he reassured us that this convicted offender would not be in meetings with any children, because it was against his parole. It would violate his parole. And he didn't want to go back to jail. So it was like really clear that the focus was on what was legal. It wasn't really about safety or any concerns in that regard. It was all about that he didn't want to go back to jail. We were also told that what he did was actually not as bad as what he had pled guilty to. So, I mean, that kind of left us with the question of like, well, what level of CSA are we okay with? Like, that was really
Hmm.
confusing to me. Like, why are we using not as bad as a what that completely baffled me. I remember telling my husband like he pled guilty. Like I need to take his word for it. Like it doesn't matter what, because we were hearing lots of versions of the story, all the way from falsely accused to not as bad to yep, he did it. Like I was like, I just have to take his word for it. If he pled guilty, I have to believe that he's guilty. So he came back and they sent him over into a meeting with no kids in Minnesota, and then COVID hit, and of course COVID revealed a lot of differences that I think a lot of us didn't expect to be so different.
Yeah.
And for us, like I was 7 months pregnant when COVID hit, and we had just placed an
Mm.
offer on our house, and basically there was no way we could move by ourselves. And to be fair to our meetings, like we didn't ask them for help because I mean there were older folks in the meetings, and and I mean we closed on our house April 3rd of 2020. So this was COVID, when no one knew how
Yeah.
bad it was, what was going to happen. And so it was like we just really didn't feel like we could expose anyone to anything. So the people who came through for us and helped us were our next door neighbors. There's a young couple who live next door to us, and they came through for us in just like such an incredible way and helped us when we needed help the most. And
Wow.
it was just like, there's no way these people are going to hell. Like actually just yesterday they left us some cookies in our mailbox, and the card said, "He is risen, hallelujah." And I just like
Um,
burst into tears. It was just like, because like it was so confirming. It was like it was fellowship all along. Like we thought it was just friendship, but like it was fellowship all along. Like I said earlier, like we had kind of like diet exclusivity anyway. Like I never really felt like everyone else was going to hell, but um it was just like so real and so confirming. Like these people definitely are not. Like they are so good-hearted. They are showing the fruits of the spirit and what they do and how they are, and who they are as people. So then I gave birth to my son in June of 2020. And again, I mean, it was COVID. It was kind of a weird time. So there were no conventions that year, and I kept him home for meetings for 6 weeks. And I had a little bit of postpartum anxiety with him, but it wasn't too bad. But then I don't remember exactly when it was, but when gospel meetings started up again, it was like, well, who's that guy sitting next to the convicted offender's wife? Oh, no one asked if we were comfortable with him coming to gospel meetings. No one told us that it would be happening. No one told us why. Because initially we were told that being around children would violate his parole, but now he's sitting in a gospel meeting with us, and we have a baby, and there are other young families here. So what's
mm,
going on? Like, are his restrictions, are they going to continue to reduce? Like, what's going to happen here? Like we were kind of like asking around, like, does anybody know? Like, what's going on? Nobody seemed to know. It was just gospel meeting started back up again, and there he was. We started calling in to gospel meeting a lot, or leaving as soon as we could. And I would tell Tyler, like, I would get close to gospel meeting, and I'd be like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go.
mhm,
And but we would go anyway, because I mean, we didn't want to look like we were hard-hearted or like we were struggling. Um,
mhm.
like just like the idea of just not going just like was almost just like not on the table.
Yeah.
um so we were just going and being really uncomfortable like so then in 2022 I had my daughter in May of 2022, and we went to Hermosa when she was a month old. Because that was the only way we were going to get a full convention. And that was absolutely a requirement. You had to get a full convention. So, and the nursery was like in the storage area above the kitchen. There was like this enormous double flight of metal stairs up above the kitchen to the nursery. And like,
Mhm.
it was so nerve-wracking, like carrying my newborn up there. And it was not the best thing for my body. And then it was still kind of COVID-y, and she was so little. And so we were trying to keep people from holding her. It was just a really nerve-wracking convention. And I had terrible postpartum anxiety with her. Just awful. And it wasn't something that I felt like I could really talk about because it was very specific postpartum anxiety. I was
Mhm.
afraid of her being abused. That
Mhm.
that was that was where it centered. Like I would look at her and she was so beautiful and like I loved her so much. And I was like, I had a girl in a world that's not safe for girls. Like, how am I
Mhm.
going to keep her safe? Like, I was
Mhm.
so just like, yeah, it was awful. And I mean, I know unfortunately it's not a world that's very safe for little boys either. Sometimes I definitely don't want to minimize that at all. For myself and my sister, it's like we were girls and it happened to us. And so I think that's why it really hit home with her. Like,
Mhm.
like she's not safe. I would get really, really, really triggered by like any abuse of women and children in like books or movies or the news or like anything. Like it would just like send me into a total tailspin and I would just be a wreck for days. And I got obsessed with this one news story in particular about a pastor who had abused a 16-year-old in his congregation. And it came out and he spun it like he was choosing to confess his adultery. And the congregation just rallied around him and prayed over him. And she didn't get like any support. And
Oh,
and I was obsessed with that story. I must have read like 50 articles about it. There was something about it that just like got its claws in me. And I was like, this is terrible. Like this is awful. It was almost like foreshadowing. Like how do you have foreshadowing for your own life? Like that doesn't it's kind of a
mhm.
weird thing, but like that's what it felt like. And
Mhm.
again, it's just like this constant refrain of like, what's wrong with me? Like, why am I so sensitive to this stuff? Why am I like,
Yeah.
and then I kind of tried to like just like consciously shift the narrative and be like, wait a minute, like what's wrong with everybody else? Like,
Mm.
why are people okay with this? Like, no one should
Yeah.
be okay with this. Everyone should
Mhm.
be upset. So then just like as my little girl started growing, like and bringing her to meetings, I mean she had a lot of kind of gender neutral like hand-me-downs from her brother, and so I was dressing her in pants for meeting more often than not. I was
Okay.
like, she's not going to be held to the same dumb standards as I was. Like that's silly. Like at some point this is going to have to change. Like why not with her generation, like
Right.
we'll just let her wear whatever. But then it started kind of nagging at me. I'm like, but she's going to grow up and she's going to see that she's wearing pants, but I'm not. So
Uh-huh.
like, what am I going to say then?
Yep.
So then I started looking for pants to wear to meeting.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so yeah, this was summer of 2022. I bought a jumpsuit with like really flowy like pants to it. And then I bought another
Uh-huh.
pair of pants that were like really flowy. And it was like so much more comfortable. It was so like when I knelt down with my toddler, like it was so nice. Like I didn't have to worry about like anyone looking at my skirt or anything. Like it was
Mm.
like just so much easier. I was like, this is great. Like, and they're
Yep.
like, I felt like they were really modest. Like it was like, it's like, why haven't we been doing this all along? So yeah, I started not all the time, but just like occasionally wearing pants
Yeah.
in 2022, just because I was like, if I want things to be different for my daughter, then I've got to be willing to be different. So then we fast forward to Brewer Gate. So my daughter is at this point, she's like 10 months old, and my son is 2. Like we've got these little kids. And my parents actually, I mean, because Dean was dad's cousin, they actually knew a few days before everybody else. I don't know if they ever would have told us though. They had connections on the West Coast and they were related to Dean. And so they heard the story. Someone had called them and told them. Tyler and I found out first because Kyle Hanks is Tyler's brother. Kyle and Kari were obviously very involved in that beginning portion of Brewer Gate. And so Kyle and Kari reached out to us and they asked us if we wanted to see this letter. And our initial response was like super defensive, like, no, like that shifted pretty quickly. Like we realized like, no, like this is important. But I remember asking my mom, like, okay, like, do you know anything about this? And she did. So then she and I had a conversation about it. And she's like, but we
Mhm.
can never tell your sister. And then
Oh,
it was
wow.
like, again, it was like very, very shortly. She told me, she's like, you know what, actually, I think we have to. And so my dad actually called all of my siblings and told them it was going to get out. It was definitely going to get out no matter what. Like, and it needed to. But I do wonder if like if it was just sort of a word of mouth thing, if like if it would have sort of lost steam and lost credibility after a while,
Mm.
just another one of those rumors. I mean, there were loads of them. Like people knew there were rumors. It was out there. Even I think about myself and like when we found out about Dean, and it's like I wasn't surprised. It's like, well,
Yep.
I knew there was CSA. I knew it
Yep.
was covered up. Like I knew
Yep.
all of this. And like how awful to like kind of have to face that and be like, no, I knew. And I wasn't doing anything about it. Part of me really feels like I let my sister down um
Oh,
by not maybe being more vocal sooner, but just kind of based on everything that's happened since, it's like what would it have done? Like
yeah.
who am I? Like what? I guess maybe at the very least it would have made her feel better and that would have been enough. But yeah, it was just like it's so strange to me to like hear this news and be like, yep, another one. Like, what are we gonna do though? Like so I really I thought it would blow over. I did. And
Yeah.
but that first couple of days was like 11 years long, you know. So it was like I think there were special meetings that Sunday. Like we learned about it like on Friday. I think it officially broke like on a Thursday. We learned about it on Friday. And by Sunday, like the workers had sent out an email about his immoral double life.
Yeah.
And then we went to special meetings and like it was all just like smiles and hugs and business as usual. And I knew everyone had gotten the email because the overseer had sent it to the whole state. So I'm like, are really? Like nobody's gonna say anything or like talk about this like at all? Like, and
Yeah.
that felt really weird to me and really wrong to me. So it was like it was a relatively short amount of time from like, nope, we don't want to hear about it. We don't want to deal with it at all to like, what? Like nobody's talking about this. No one's dealing with this. So we were getting basically all of our news from Wings or from Kari, and pretty shortly we asked to meet with the workers. And
Mhm.
like we had supper with another young family, and then we were like, hey, should we talk to the workers? And so then we reached out to the workers, and they said that they would meet with each of the young families separately.
Mm.
And I thought that was so weird. I was like, that seems,
Yeah.
at the very least, that seems like a waste of time. But at most insidious, it felt really like divide and conquer. Like I didn't like it. It felt like a red flag to me. So our first meeting with the workers, it was like super placating, like just this like be aware, like watch your kids. And it's like I remember saying like be aware. How are we supposed to be aware if we don't know? Like you're not telling us who the predators are. How are we supposed to
Yeah.
know who to look out for? The workers encouraged us to talk to the convicted offender ourselves, have a conversation with him ourselves. And I remember one of the workers said, if Dean were still alive, he would not be in this work. And I was like, that's absolutely false. He 100% would still be in the work. Um,
Yeah.
so then we asked him, we said, well, how do you fire an overseer? And they said, God will take care of it. And that did not satisfy me. The only good thing that came out of that meeting is they did agree to go down to Sioux Falls and tell all the families that there was a convicted offender in their field coming to their meetings. And they did it individually, which was very silly to me. I was just so disappointed and I was so troubled and I realized like nothing is going to be the same again. It's not. So then it was like 2.5 weeks later. I just like I couldn't sleep. I was just like so troubled by all of it. There was all these thoughts just like swirling around in my head, and I just started typing. And I had no intention to ever send what I wrote. But by 4 in the morning, I had a 3-page letter.
Uh-huh.
And it called for a united response. I was able to reference Judges 19 from being very familiar with my visceral response to that scripture previously in
Yeah.
my life. And I felt like the sister workers were really being underutilized, like severely underutilized. Um, and then why do we even have overseers? Get rid of them. They're not scriptural. And then a consistent, transparent policy across the board. That's essentially what my letter asked for. So I sent
Mm.
it to Tyler and to my parents and a few close friends, and then I sent it to a few sister workers, and like the response from all of that was like, yes, like send this. Um, so then I did. I sent it to the brother workers in our field. I sent it to Glenn Gasser, Craig Winquist, Leroy Sanford, and Martin Wilson. I was actually born in Colorado, and Martin has known me since I was a baby. I have not heard anything from him at all. That really hurt me, actually. And we immediately got a response from the brothers in our field. We'll have another visit. And then I didn't hear anything from any of the others. And then we had shared it with our families, and Kari asked if she could post it on her Facebook, and she did, and it ended up on Wings, and it kind of went viral. And my theory is, I mean, there's no way for me to prove this, but my theory is that Glenn started getting it from other sources. So I had sent it to him personally, and then now he's getting it from other people, is my theory. I don't know that. But it wasn't until it was posted online that Glenn finally responded. And he CC'd all the other brothers that I had sent it to so that they wouldn't have to bother responding themselves. And he said that there were quite inaccurate descriptions of the ministry. He put a huge emphasis on education, which didn't hold a whole lot of water for me because I knew they'd been taking ministry safe since 2008. So either it's not enough or it's not being applied. And then he said that overseers, like Moses and others, did not ask for their place, but they submitted to the responsibility. And he'd been in a lot of overseers meetings, and there was always a humble, childlike spirit.
Mm.
And considering what was just recently leaked, I think we can kind of judge for ourselves the kind of spirit in those meetings.
Yeah.
But Tyler and I, at the time, we started counting up the overseers that we knew personally. And we could think of 8 overseers that we knew personally, and every single one had allegations, had covered things up, or had affairs. Some multiple. They checked maybe more than one box. So it was like, okay, so you must not be very good at judging the spirit if you're in a room with these men who are hiding horrific things. And like that just did not it was not a satisfactory response in my mind. And it was baffling. Actually, it was actually baffling to me because I really thought that they would want to change. Like
Yep.
I thought like this is God's true way. This is his true ministry. And it's obvious that we are off track. So we should want to change. We should want to
Yeah.
adjust. And the overseer thing specifically really confused me because there was this like humility to it. None of us asked for this. And I was like, well, then give it up. Easiest thing
Yep.
in the world. You never wanted it. It's not in the Bible. Just give it up. Work in teams, have term limits, do something that has more
Yep.
checks and balances. Like, this is crazy that you're clinging to this when there's no basis for it. Like, it was so wild to me. So then our workers were gone for special meetings. When they came back, we had a second visit, and we were told that the Holy Spirit would tell us if someone was safe for our kids to be around. Um, the worker put sexual harassment in air quotes and went on a whole tangent on how he feels so bad for men and how they need to protect themselves from false accusation.
Hmm.
When we asked why we even have overseers, the scripture that was given was when Paul asked Timothy to bring him his parchments. That meant that Paul was the overseer. I was absolutely shaking with rage. I was so angry. And I knew if I let it show, which I'm sure I did let it show. I mean, there's no way I didn't, but like then I would be
Yeah.
the one with the bad spirit, right? Because yeah,
Yep.
it was a huge relief when they left. It was like there was no peace in our home when they were here. So then in May, at this point, it was like my letter, like it just like it had wings. It
Yeah.
was not even mine anymore. Like it was going all over the place. It felt like I was just amazed by it. People were reaching out to me. Survivors were reaching out, parents were reaching out, mental health professionals, workers. Like it was really a really amazing time. And this mom from the East Coast, she reached out to me and she said, we were planning to do a letter writing campaign. She said, we read your letter and we would just like to add our signature.
Hmm.
So she put together a WhatsApp group with 11 women from all over North America. And they put together, we put together a Google form, started sending it out to our circles, and
Yeah.
then collected over 900 signatures.
Hmm.
And the signatures were so powerful. A lot of people signed anonymously, and it was like, still haven't told my story. Mother of a victim. Like, just like gut-wrenching anonymous signatures. And then just like so many beautiful names of people. And like so many of those names, I was looking back over them. We never shared them publicly, because that wasn't what it was about. It was to add impact to the letter to send to the ministry. We actually sent it to over 400 workers, but we never shared the signatures publicly. And and looking over them now, and I mean, this was all before CCF. And like, I was
Yep.
like, now I look over it and I'm like, I recognize these names. Like,
Yep.
and that's been a really beautiful thing. But I was so moved. I was so moved by just like all of this. I mean, it was over 900 signatures on the Google form, but a lot of people signed, for their families or for their spouses. So well over 1,000
Yep.
people adding their name to mine, and it was so humbling. And like for myself, I didn't even send out the Google form to my network because I was so terrified of self-promoting. I was like, I can't
Hmm.
be seeming like I think I'm really something. But one of the things that became clear as these women, these incredible women, were reaching out to their friends and families in meetings, is that people were terrified. And
Yep.
it was weird to me. Like, I would never have expected that, the amount of fear. And some of it, like, there were people who were scared. They were professionals in their community and they were scared of people in their community Googling their name and seeing it attached to this fellowship with CSA. But I would say the vast majority of people, their fear was centered around like the workers, like repercussions from the workers. We were hearing
Hmm.
like, um, someone said, if heads start to roll, what if they come for me? I was
Yep.
like, is this the mafia? Like, what is, like, I was so, that I actually didn't expect that level of fear. And what was kind of like hurtful about it is there were a lot of people who supported me privately, especially when I sent it out initially. They were like, yes, do this and this. And then when it came time to like add their signature to it, nope. Like, and that
Yep.
was that was kind of hurtful. I mean, no, it was hurtful. Although I did understand like people had their reasons, like I really tried not to take it
Yep.
personally. But yeah, we sent the letter to over 400 workers and two responded.
Hmm.
And it just like became so clear, like this letter was getting this incredible response from the friends, and like nothing, like crickets from the workers. So then in June we went to convention, and
Okay.
and it was absolutely awful. I had a total mental breakdown on Thursday night, missed most of Friday. The testimonies were just like weirdly divided. There were a lot of people who stood up and spoke really courageously. And then there was one testimony in particular that was just like a gut punch. They stood up and they said, I just want to tell the workers, we love you, we believe you, we're here for you. And it just made me feel so sick. I was like, this is what survivors need to hear. We love you, we
Yeah.
believe you, we're here for you. And this person is saying it to the workers. Like that just seems so wild to me. There were a lot of messages, just like vague sort of allusions. Oh, there's a storm, stay in the boat. And then in the last meeting, we heard that God's way is not a democracy. That was fun. The only really like redeeming part of being at convention was I had amazing conversations with people between meetings. Like, there were two
Yeah.
ex-sister workers there and I got to talk to them and they were just incredible. Their stories were absolutely gut-wrenching. They were wonderful, beautiful people. And I mean that made it worth it. Really, it did. So then one night of that convention, I was just like tears, I'm just crying. And I told my dad, I said, what if Jesus is calling me out onto the water? And I think I knew then. I think I knew I was going to leave then.
Mm.
Um, And then that summer was just like such a weird time. It was like I felt like I spent all summer talking. There was something really, really awesome about it. Like I was making incredible new friendships. I was deepening old friendships. We were talking about Jesus and about God in ways we never had before. We were talking about what we can do, how we can make a change. And then it also just felt like that was all I was doing. I was like, I'm just talking. Like, what? Like, I want to do something. Like, what can we do? And it's like, all I'm doing is talking. And so then at the end of the summer, my meeting, who I had not sent my letter to, they had all kind of organically, one by one, sort of realized like we need to do something. So my Sunday morning meeting, the one that we had been sent to 35 minutes away, I believe that was God in it 100% because these wonderful people, they were like, well, we need to talk. We need to sit down as a meeting and talk about this. So then the elder ended up inviting four workers, two brothers and two sisters. And we met with them our whole meeting and the workers, and it was just so intense. It just like all of this hurt started pouring out. And our meeting, I mean, we were like that after that. Like we were so bonded. We were like family. Because we
Mhm.
knew, I mean, we were all on the same page and we had all kind of gotten there ourselves. So then the very next day was gospel meeting, and our whole meeting files into gospel meeting. And the message we hear is about Joseph and how he didn't tell anyone about his pain. God helped him forget. And this generation, they have this attitude of, we will not have this man to rule over us. And, and it was the only time I had ever looked at the crowd in a gospel meeting and seen people were shaking their heads no. And
Wow.
like it was like so it was wild. It was just wild. And then the very next day, it was like bam, 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 like 3 days in a row. It was so intense. We had our last meeting with the workers, just like Tyler and I and them. And it was just like talking to a brick wall, I guess. It's just like
Mhm.
there was also like, oh yeah, we have more education now. Like we'll get more education. Yeah, we're really
Mm.
sorry about how things have gone, but we'll just get more education but like any questions about like changing the structure or like let's get to the bottom of like what are these root causes? Like nothing. Like and I just like started crying and I could not pull myself together. I had to leave. Tyler saw them out, and that was the last time we had workers. Um so that summer and this fall, there were so many conversations and so many resources that were shared and things that just like move the needle. And like, man, I could sit here for another 2 hours probably and list off all the names of people who were helpful and encouraging. Like, I feel like I had a picture in my head of what I thought the fellowship was. And I had all these puzzle pieces. I'm trying to fit them together to match that picture, and it's just not working. It's like there's CSA, there's an unscriptural ministry, there's the dumb appearance rules, there's like all this stuff, and I'm trying to get it to fit to match this picture of what I think it's supposed to look like. Um, and I'm trying to
Mhm.
tape things together with like the way is perfect, but the people aren't. Don't let what other people do affect your salvation. Tape, tape, tape. It's not working.
Yep.
And so then there's something happening, something unfolding, in my head and in my heart. And it's just like the series of revelations sort of started coming. And one of the first most impactful things was Diane Langberg. I watched her speak, and she preached the gospel. I feel like I can say that she is the first person who preached the gospel to me, like the
Wow.
gospel. Like I had never heard someone talk about Jesus like that and talk about Jesus in a way where he is there in it with the wounded. Like he is helping people, he is alongside people. And and the other thing was like she was talking about our church. She was talking about our fellowship, and the video I was watching was like 5 years old or something, like it like I'm like, whoa, like we're not special. I thought we were special, but we're not. Like this has happened before. And so that was like that we're not special was kind of like the first piece to click into place. And then it was like, okay, well, what we're doing isn't actually scriptural. Like when we really look at the scripture, like how we're set up, this hierarchy, it's not scriptural. Like it needs to change. Um,
Yep.
and so there was that realization, like I'm a Pharisee. Like
Mm.
we have been told, or I thought we were doing what was closest to the Bible. But then I look in the scripture and I see that's what the Pharisees were doing. They wanted
Yep.
to be closest to the Bible. And then their Messiah was talking to them and they were missing it. And
Totally.
and and so I'm like, whoa, like I'm a Pharisee. I'm a Pharisee. And that was pretty huge. And so like then one of the things where I was thinking about the ministry and like how the ministry isn't really what it needs to be. And I was like, well, I think married people can be workers. So then that was kind of searching because I was like, well, if I think married people can be workers, then I better be ready to be called to work. And I
Mm.
expected it to be like this, like, this kind of heavy thing, like somber, like, am I willing for that? But instead it was like, I could minister. Like
Mhm.
I could be in the ministry. Like it was like this light, like awesome, beautiful thing to think. And like I did not expect that at all. To be so excited about the idea of preaching or teaching or mentoring or being a help to others like that. It's just like welled up into me like, yeah, like I could do it. Like that would be awesome. Then finally it was like something clicked into place and I threw out that picture. I was like, this isn't right and it isn't changing. So what now? You know? I mean, I do have to call out Heidi Denherter for her way is perfect, but the people aren't. I mean, that was very, very confirming. That was helpful. So then I kind of, because my initial reaction, I was like, well, if this isn't God's way, then what is? I need to go out and find it. I need to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing. So I got a study Bible and I just like started diving into the scripture. I was looking in other translations. I was trying to figure things out. Um, and then my study Bible had a picture of what a sheepfold looked like in ancient times. I was just like a circle of stones and then a gap, and the shepherd lays across the gap. And I had this vision in my mind of myself walking up to this sheepfold, and there's Jesus sitting in the doorway, and he smiles at me and he lets me in. And I realized I was like that's it. That's what it means. That's what Jesus is the way means. It doesn't mean
Mm.
that he established a way. He didn't come to bring another law to swap out temples for meeting homes and priests for workers. Like it's just him waiting for you, waiting to
Yes.
welcome you in. And like it just hit me like I don't have to carry that burden of trying to find or start something that's better or more accurate. I just need Jesus. That's it. And
Yes.
oh man, the freedom. The freedom. It was so, so wonderful. And so another kind of realization of like who is Jesus? Like it's like, wait, like he's divine. Like I like leading up to Advent in 2023, I was reading like a like Advent reading plan and it went into a lot of prophecies of Jesus and they were all about how he was coming to save. It was nothing about
Mhm.
like he will show you what you need to do. It was all about like he's coming to save you. So that kind of understanding like Jesus is divine. Like I don't have a grasp on Trinity stuff. I don't pretend to. I don't think anybody does actually.
Yeah.
Just this realization that he's a safe example to follow. Of course he is. But if we could live up to that example, we wouldn't need him. Like if we could be him, we wouldn't need him. He didn't come to be an example. He came to save us because he knew we couldn't be that. And like that was also just like so liberating, just like realizing how divine he is and how truly special he is. And that his what he did for us and his role, it was not something that we were supposed to replicate. It was something that we were supposed to receive. Um,
Yes.
so in September, then I believe that's when the Grace Roundtable came out. And
Okay.
you, Whitney, and your co-friends, I mean, you also preached the gospel to me. And
Uh,
I am so thankful for that. I was just like I know for a fact I never heard grace preached because it's one of those things like when you learn a new word, suddenly you start seeing that word everywhere, you know? And
mhm.
that's how it was in the Bible. Like I was seeing grace all over in the Bible once I learned about it. But then I
Yes.
went back through my notes and I went over 4 years of notes covering over 100 meetings, 200 to 300 messages, and grace was only mentioned 6 times. And when
Okay.
it was mentioned as help from God to do your part.
Yes.
So I know for a fact. It's not that I missed it. It's not that I was hearing it and I didn't have ears to hear. It just wasn't there. I'm confident of that. So I was just in my dining room, just like thinking about Grace, and this just like feeling just like came over me. And I was like, but love like that is impossible. And yet, and like I feel like that was my Grace moment. Like that last piece just like clicked into place. I was like, okay, now the picture makes sense. And it's
Mhm.
way, way, way more beautiful than the one I was having such a hard time throwing away earlier.
Yeah.
Like, and from there, it's just like it felt like I was on the edge of something wonderful all the time. Like it was like the Bible was written in all of these different colors, and I had taken off tinted lenses, and now I could see things that I'd never seen before.
Yeah.
And there were things there that they were a completely different color. You know, they looked completely different in a completely different light. I couldn't get enough. I was reading my Bible nonstop. It felt like I would get interrupted by my kids and it didn't matter. I was like, okay, I'll just go back to where I was. I was reading my Bible, it felt like all day long. And yet I was like more productive than I had ever been. Like it did not make any sense. It was like there was somehow more time in the day. I was hitting my step goal. Like I was telling my husband, I was like, the only thing that has changed is grace, and I've been hitting my step goal every day this week. Like, how does that even happen? Like, what? Um, like I I started listening to the Bema podcast, and that is where like I realized how united like Jesus and God are. Like this God of the Old Testament that felt so distant and so vast and so just like separate from us. Like suddenly with the context, it was like, oh no, this God has been loving and wanting to partner with us the entire time. And that was just like so incredible. My focus completely shifted. It shifted from self-denial, self-sacrifice, self-improvement, self, to who is God? I don't even know him. I need to get to know him. If I'm going to serve him, I need to know who he is. And as I was getting to know him, I was completely in awe. I was amazed by him. And I would drive my son to preschool and I would like look at the trees and I'd be like, wow, Lord, like, thank you for these trees. They're so beautiful. Like, I mean,
Totally.
like, I grew up knowing my Auntie Kathleen. And
Mm.
now it's like I was becoming her, you know? Like everything is so beautiful. Thank you, God. Like,
Yes. Oh, Kathleen over me.
yes, yes, that's my auntie. Um, so and we're still going to meetings at this time, and like our testimonies are changing a little bit. It's yeah, there's definitely a shift. And my husband is the kindest, most wonderful, most positive, glass half full kind of guy. And so he was like, well, let's keep trying. You know, let's like, I'll call up this worker, we'll talk to this person, like we'll just keep trying. And and so
Mm.
I was pretty much I feel like I was a little bit checked out, but he was reaching out to people. Like when he would think of people, he would reach out and he would talk to them and he was still trying. So I mean, we that's part of why we were still in meetings is because he was putting such an effort into it. The thing that was kind of holding me back from leaving, I was like, well, everything good in my life, this wonderful man, my upbringing, like all my these beautiful friends, some of which I've had a
Yeah.
long time, others I've just made this summer, like that's all because I went to meetings. And then it kind of hit
Yeah.
me. I was like, oh, that's a golden calf. I'm giving credit to meeting that belongs only to God. Like it's God alone who has blessed me with all of these things for whatever reason. And I can let go of meetings. That's fine because it was God and I still have him. So
Mhm.
then in October of 23, I found out that I was pregnant. And I went from this like mountaintop to like this very strange sort of valley. I felt like what was happening in my body and what was happening like spiritually were so connected. It was like there's this new life and I'm so happy, but I'm really tired and I feel a little sick. Like it's like that's how I felt in my body. That's how I felt spiritually too. Like my zeal
Yeah.
for like reading the Bible all the time, it kind of went away. I was like, I don't know if I really want to dive into this today. And like, it was just
Mm.
like Bible study became just like this huge, just like effort. there was a dark cloud over me. Like, and finally I was just like, I'm miserable every time it's time to go to Bible study. I'm absolutely miserable. And that's not fair to everyone there to show
Mm.
up and just be bummed. So I
Yeah.
stopped going. And Tyler still went. He brought the kids, and it was actually really nice to have time to myself. I think, I mean, it was very hard. It was very hard to be doing something different than them. But there was good things in it. We were both just praying desperately for unity in our marriage because we were on the same page on everything that was important. It was just he wanted more time. And I was kind of done. And I felt like this weird pressure, and I don't know if this is going to resonate with anybody. Because I've tried to articulate it before and I just feel like I can't find the words, but it was like I was already out, like in my heart. And I had had this incredible like grace experience and this awesome time of so much joy and so much thankfulness. And now that had kind of waned a little bit. And so it was like I felt like almost pressure, like I have to be happy all the time. I have to have joy all the time now because I know
Yeah.
what it is to have joy and grace and to get to know God better. So like, why am I not joyful all the time? And like,
Hmm.
quite frankly, like that's pretty unrealistic. But I thought if I lost any degree of that joy, any degree of that zeal, that it would mean that I was doing the wrong thing.
Mm.
Um, and so it kind of that was kind of hard too, because then I would think about like, okay, well, maybe I need to go back. And that was just like completely unacceptable to me. Like it just like no, like I could not even imagine. I just, yeah, I saw no future in it. I saw absolutely no future in it. But we were still going to our Sunday meeting because we were just like a family, and the fellowship we were having was absolutely incredible, beautiful fellowship that winter. And if it were up to me, we would have gone unsanctioned. Like I would have loved to have just stayed in our meeting, and that for just a variety of reasons, it didn't work out that way. And I think the lesson to me from God was you're not going to learn what I have to teach you by doing the same thing with the same people.
Mm.
And even though those people are absolutely incredible, amazing, wonderful people, like it wasn't, we weren't meant to stay. And so we went to a candlelight Christmas Eve service in
Hmm.
December of 23, and it was just like I just cried and cried and cried. It was like I felt like I'd wasted so much time just like judging these people who were so beautiful and so sincere. And I was mad. I was mad that we were taught that they didn't have honest hearts because I was seeing love and joy and honesty on the faces all around me at this service. And yeah, and I was just mad. I was mad about that. I was like, I mean, uh, in some ways, I wouldn't have traded our little meeting for anything, but also like we could have just been going 5 minutes away too. Like like
Yeah.
there's beautiful, beautiful, amazing, incredible Christians right around the corner, literally. Because we just went to the church that was closest to us. That's how we chose where we would go to the candlelight service. It's just the one closest. It was 5 minute walk. So I did not know what to do because I knew I was done and Tyler wasn't. And we were having this great fellowship in our little meeting, but I couldn't support the larger thing. And it was just like, I had no idea what to do. And the answer God gave me was to wait and to let him work. And do you know how hard that was to hear? After
Mhm.
all of the garbage, and people were using that as an excuse, we don't want to get ahead of God. We just need to let God work. God's going to take care of it. So to hear him say to me, like, no, you don't need to do anything. I'm going to take care of it. It was like, are you kidding me? Like,
Yeah.
like I was like,
Yeah.
there's no, that can't be right. Like,
Yeah.
but turns out it was right. For like a couple months, I was just kind of in limbo. I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, and then in February, just like bang, 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 like all of this stuff happened at once. Tyler, who had been making such an effort, he talked to our overseer, and the conversation was just deeply disappointing. Our efforts to get survivor therapy paid for in our region completely fell through. We knew the documentary was coming because my sister had been interviewed for it. And then the FBI investigation began. And the documentary and the FBI investigation, it was like, well, how can we have a good testimony in our community with this stain on our fellowship? Like, how are we supposed to, you know, bring people to Jesus with this? So
Mhm.
then we got an email that, the workers were going to start up gospel meetings again. And Tyler was like, well, I'm not going back to gospel meeting. Are you going back to gospel meeting? No. Like we were like, we knew we couldn't go back to gospel meeting. So that was it. It was like just like as simple as that, that unity that we had been praying for, it was there and we both knew. And people who left before us, they would tell us, like, we would like, how do you know? How do you know when you're supposed to leave? And they would say, well, you'll know. You'll know when it's time. And it's like, that's not helpful
Right.
until we knew. Like then it was just like we just knew and that was it. So for 9 months we um did communion together as a family, and that was a really, really beautiful, special time. We would make unleavened bread ourselves. And the whole process of the unleavened bread was just like there was so much of Jesus in it, just like flour, salt, oil, like salt of the earth, bread of life, oil of gladness, like, and then you just like mix it all together and you'd roll it out and you'd pierce it with a fork. And it was just like, I don't know, it just like came alive. And then we would share the bread with each other and with our kids. And my answer with
Bridget.
that was, allow the little children to come unto me, for of such is the kingdom of God. And that felt like a very clear answer to me that it was fine. It was fine to let them partake with us. That they didn't need to
Mhm.
jump through any hoops to remember Jesus. And I was serving them grape juice just for a snack one day. And my oldest, he said to my daughter, he says, we drink this to decorate Jesus. I was just like, oh, that's so sweet. Like yeah, like it's fine. It's fine. Like we're doing our best out here. We don't know what we're doing, but it's fine. It's good. And we had richer fellowship than ever with people who had
Mhm.
left, with people who were still in, with people who had never been in. Like we were started sharing our story with our friends who were not professing, and we just met with just like overwhelming, gracious, understanding love. And it was just became so clear, like God provides for his people in the wilderness. He always has,
Mhm.
he always will. So then in July of 2024, we had our youngest, our daughter, and we
Mhm.
named her Olive.
Ah,
Um, because she was like this glimpse of land after a flood. She was like represented the peace and the growth and the new life. And oh, and that postpartum was just night and day different. It was so
mm,
amazing that anxiety, it was nowhere to be found.
mm,
I feel like I need to be cautious and just give some caveats when it comes to like mental health stuff. Like I can only speak to my own experience, and everyone's experience with mental health is going to be different. But for me, it was like that weight of anxiety that I felt with our older daughter. I think it was tied to just this nagging feeling of her not being safe in this fellowship. And then we had left. We had left. And so that anxiety was gone. And I had this I had so much more love. I don't know, like I just had more somehow. And I almost felt kind of bad about it. I was like, do I love her more than my other kids? But I was like, no, no, I don't, because this love is it's just pouring over. Like, I think she is an incredible miracle. And I think my 2-year-old daughter is an incredible miracle. And I think my 4-year-old son is an incredible miracle. Like, they're all miracles and it's beautiful. And I'm so happy. And like, it was just unbelievable how different. And like, there was nowhere to be. There was nothing to dress up for, or I mean, we could just be as a family and rest. And it was so, so beautiful. The only thing was, I mean, we did get 2 visits from the FBI, which was a little nerve-wracking, but it was also reassuring to know that I mean, they're on it. They're working on it. And in August, I donated my hair. And that was really liberating and really joyful. I loved that. I expected to have more mixed feelings than I did. It was basically all positive, just like, yay. Because I've been wanting to donate my hair for a long time. And then now I finally felt like I could without like offending anyone. Then we would go visit our friends who had left, and a lot of our friends had found churches, and so we'd go with them, and it was always just like such a positive experience. And so I was like, well, maybe we should start looking for a church. So I'd come home and I would like look up churches in our area, and then it was always just like, like really overwhelming, and there was always something that just kind of like gave me the ick, um, and it started to feel kind of like everyone was moving on without us, kind of like CCF
mm,
was starting to get a little quieter, and Like it's just like everyone's kind of moving on with their life. And
Yep.
it felt like I wasn't, And I wanted to feel settled and I wanted to have local community. And I mean, I don't think church is a requirement, but that was kind of my framework for how you find local community. So I really wanted to experience all of Advent because we'd had such a good experience at the candlelight service. So we just went to the closest church again, went for Advent, and we never stopped going.
Okay.
So like I expected to just like do all of this research and like eliminate churches where I don't agree with this doctrine or I don't agree with that doctrine. And in the end we just went to the closest church because it was just so overwhelming to even think about doing research. So I felt a little bit bad about that. But then after going for a few months, I told Tyler, I was like, well, we should talk to the pastors. We should at least make sure that some fundamentals are in place. Like, I don't want to get really settled here and then find out that there's like a real issue. Um,
Right.
we met with them 3 times. It was probably hours, like 6 to 8 hours of talking with them. It was a man and a woman. And they are what's called community life pastors. I did not know there were so many different types of pastors, but they don't preach. They just tend to the congregation. And it was really nice that they had time for us. They didn't have a message to prepare. They made time for us whenever we wanted to meet with them. And they talked through our questions and they unpacked our story and they showed us so much love and so much respect. And we told them, like, we will never be a member. And they were like, that's fine. 80% of the congregation is not a member. You can be baptized, you can take communion, you can do whatever you want. Like, it's fine. And like that was really, really nice, actually, like really reassuring that they're just not doing a whole lot of gatekeeping at this particular church.
Mm.
I kind of realized that like all churches are institutions of man. They all are. And this is actually good news because it means that they can adjust and they can change and they can work to become healthier. Or if they don't, you can leave them. And it's not leaving
Yeah.
God because they're all
Yes.
just institutions of man. And God in his mercy has been working through churches just like he's been working through individuals. So it's just kind of this realization that church isn't it's we are the church. It's not
Yes.
it's not where we're going, it's not what we're doing. It's who we are. And anywhere we go, church comes with us. So the
Mm.
conversation that we're having right now, where I am doing all of the talking, is church. And you are being
Yes.
preached at currently. You're the
Yes.
congregation. The
Yes.
connection that we have with each other. Um, that's church.
Yes.
And and that just like opens up the floodgates of like all the possibilities for fellowship. And
Yes.
so one of the things that I struggled with the most going to the church was the music, and I think a lot of people struggle with this. I
Yeah.
loved the praise aspects, but I really struggled with the volume and with this like, oh, is this just like entertainment? Like what's going on?
Yeah.
But I just watching the musicians, it was clear that they were using their gifts, their talents for the Lord. And
Mm.
so I didn't have a whole lot of like judgment for the musicians or for the crowd who was just like very clearly moved by the music. It was just kind of like, well, is this for me? So I was kind of talking this over with one of my friends and she's like, well, like I have a few songs that I really like that we've heard at church and I had a few that I really liked that we'd heard at church and so we shared playlists with each other. And
Mhm.
on her playlist for me was Yet Not I, but Through Christ in Me. And on my playlist for her was Be Thou My Vision.
Ah,
And our churches are hundreds of miles apart. They are not of the same denomination. They are not affiliated. The next Sunday, both of our churches sang both of those songs.
wow. It's
And
beautiful.
I just like, I felt like God saw me where I was. And there was another Sunday where they sang I Surrender All. And that's to the tune of one of our hymns. And
Yeah.
it's just like, I just like started crying. And what came into my head was a new song is in my mouth to long loved music set. And I went
Wow.
and looked it up. I'm like, there's no way a worker wrote this hymn, right? And like I looked it up and like, no, it was not, it's not all in all caps in the author's thing. So it's like, okay,
Uh-huh.
this is an unprofessing person wrote this hymn, but it just like I felt like God was using this music that was completely foreign to me to just rewire my brain and teach me about praise and worship and words like hallelujah and holy and praise. Like they're not that repetition, it doesn't have to be vain. It's
Mhm.
about the feeling. And like I would get this feeling just in my chest, just like I had so much love and so much thankfulness in me that it just like wouldn't fit. And like I realized like I can recognize that feeling now throughout the day. And it's like that's worship where love and thankfulness are meeting, and that's worship. And it can
Yeah.
channel, that feeling can channel through these words like hallelujah and holy. And so I started like switched my radio to like the Christian station, and it's like practically every time I get in the car it seems like holy forever is on, and like I can't listen to it without crying, and I don't even really know why. And it's just like, and it's just like it's the feeling, there's something
Mm.
in it, it's the feeling. And I really miss singing 4-part harmony, but I'm not as worried about that anymore. It's like that will come, that will
Mhm.
come. I'll find a community choir or something, that will come. I don't have to give that
Yes.
up, but I feel like I'm like God is teaching me something through some of this stuff that I thought was like, oh, this is not for me, like this is not what I would have chosen. So to kind of like wrap this up finally, I
Yeah.
wanted to talk a little bit about how like I feel like my prayer life has changed. I used to be actually afraid to pray. I used to be afraid to pray, and I used to feel like I was bad at it. I was
Mm.
afraid of praying the wrong thing and then having that prayer be answered. Like it was almost like I thought like God was like laying in wait somehow. Like I don't know how to quite describe it. But I was afraid of like not being reverent enough or not being good enough to come before the king. And I like could not get distracting thoughts under control. Like there was no way. And it felt like in the fellowship there was an emphasis on like time spent and quietness achieved. Like you have to be there and you have to get quiet, and like you got to shut the door to distracting thoughts. And I heard a worker speak once about someone who said that they prayed all day, they talked to God all day, and he said that's not praying. If you're doing anything else, you're not praying.
Oh wow.
And like, so I had a lot of fear about doing it wrong. So my high school friend who's not professing, she would talk about her prayer journal. And so I actually from her I got this idea of prayer journaling. And so I was doing that. I've been doing that for years. And that was really helpful because I thought like, well, if I'm not, it can pop into my head, but if I don't write it down, it's not part of the prayer. So I can kind of like vet myself, that way. Filter out any like distracting thoughts that way. But recently I just got to thinking, I was like, is there like any scriptural basis for this like distracting thoughts idea? Because I was
Mhm.
like, God has 1,000 years to think about every detail of my day. Like if I can't remember if I started the dishwasher, why not just pray about it? If I'm worried about water in the basement, just pray about it. Just like, and like that was so liberating. It's like I could talk to God about anything at any
Uh-huh.
time. Like there is no
Mhm.
such thing as a distracting thought because if it's in my head, he already knows it's there. What favor
Yeah.
are we doing either one of us by pretending it's not? I
Right.
just I just invite him into it. And that's not to say that like I don't that like quiet time isn't important. I still really like to prayer journal actually because you can go back and read and see these prayers being answered, and it's incredible. I just feel like I'm free now to just invite God into everything. I can bring him my questions, my concerns, just like and my feelings of like anger or confusion, like everything. He's big enough and he has
Yeah.
time. And I know I'm kind of taking that out of context, but I don't think the spirit of it is necessarily wrong. That like God has 1,000 years to think about every detail of my day. Like
Yeah. I
that
love.
was so comforting to me.
Yeah.
It's like I can just bring it all to him. And now, like, I'm not afraid to tell people I'm praying for them anymore because it used to be like if I said I was praying for someone and then I forgot, like that would be terrible, right? Like if I said I'm going to pray for you and then that evening or when I sat down with my journal, if I forgot to, like that really scared me. So now I'm not afraid anymore because like if I tell you I'm praying for you, like I'm actually praying for you right now. Like
Right.
it's happening right now, or like when this conversation is over, like I'll pray for you, like it's gonna be an immediate thing. Like I lift people up in prayer as soon as I think of them now. And what's awesome about it is my prayers now I feel like are being answered like they never have been before. Like
Yeah.
even and maybe even especially like the ones about natural things. Like and now I don't really make any distinction anymore. If there's no such thing as distracting thoughts, there's really no such thing as natural things either. I mean, you just invite God into all of it. He created all of it.
Mhm.
He knows about all of it. Why not? Why not have him
Exactly.
here? And I was telling my husband, I was like, I don't know how much I thought about God before. but it's nothing compared to how much I think about him now. And that's
Mm.
like 2 years later. It's just like constant. And I don't think I would have expected that. I just feel so much more secure now. Like
Oh, I love that.
even in those ups and downs, I'm secure because I'm more secure in who God is. That he's not
Mhm.
trying to trap me. He's not trying to find that, moment where I'm sinning or I'm having a wrong thought and like say gotcha. And it's like some of the little things just don't matter as much when like that you are loved by the God of the universe. Like there's a foundation and it's a
Yes.
solid rock. I was just thinking like about being born again and like what does that mean? And when was I born again? Was it when I was 12? Was it last September? And I was just thinking, like being born again, like the one who's holding me now. He was there all along. He was surrounding me all along. He was feeding me all along. I just see him a little
Yes.
clearer now. That's kind of where I'm at. I mean, there are ups and downs and not every day is perfect, but I feel like I'm being held. I feel secure. And and that's
Beautiful.
beautiful and it's amazing. And I want it for everyone. I want everyone
Oh,
to experience it.
oh my goodness, Bridget. It has been such a delight to listen to your story. From beginning to end is just such a journey of so much bravery, of so much courage, and of so much justice and desire for justice. It's so inspirational. And there are really no words to add to what you've said. And from your early efforts of the letter and of advocating for your sister to today, it's like that constant of your care and your kindness is just admirable and evident.
Thank you so much, Whitney, and thank you for all that you do to get these stories out there. I mean, I've listened to all of them and there's something in every one of them that's just so
Mm-hmm.
wonderful. And so
Yeah.
thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, so many amazing stories. And the beautiful thing is they're all so different and there is no right way to do this journey. So thank you for sharing your time with me, for sharing your story with me. It's amazing to have listened to it.
Thank you, Whitney.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, I hope you have a really good day.
You too.